Good morning, Witta's Wolves. It is Thursday, April 23rd, and happy morning to you. Where in the world is Miss Witta this morning? Well, where was she on Tuesday? On Tuesday, I was in the state of Virginia. Great job on your guessing, and that is my middle name. So anyway, where in the world is Miss Witta this morning? Well, I am in a state that is a northeastern state. It has the smallest area with the 8th smallest population. In this state, Roger Williams, who founded this state, he established the first working democracy. And Thomas Jefferson and, where did my notes go? Thomas Jefferson and John Adams credit Williams for establishing the First Amendment, or the inspiration behind the First Amendment, which is your right to speech. Also, Mr. Witta proposed to me in the town that I'm in right now in this state. So, where in the world is Mrs. Witta this morning? All right, so as far as assignments for today, you have an assignment in each subject that is being turned in as a test grade. So in reading, you're going to read A Hero's Best Friend. You're going to look for the central idea or the main idea, and then you're going to give 3 examples of details or supporting evidence. You can use that graphic organizer that you had on Tuesday. You can use that to help you organize your thinking. You're also going to write and explain how does one example of the detail or supporting evidence support the central or main idea. And there's a writing example for you that you can follow. It's basically the same as what you did yesterday, Wednesday, for your daily grade. So you're going to put in whatever the detail or supporting evidence is, and you say that it supports the central or main idea because, and then you're going to fill in why. Why does it support that? Okay, so that is your test grade for reading or ELA. In math, you have the performance task. So you want to either write out the questions or print it and submit your answers to me on your class profile. You can take a picture and post it. You can write it there on the journal. That's up to you. In science, what is one of your favorite animals? Describe at least 5 adaptations that help it survive where it lives. So this is a real animal, and you want to write down what are 5 adaptations that help it survive where it lives. All right, I know you guys will do great on that. And make sure for science that you've turned in your made-up creature and plant that survive in a particular environment. In reading, make sure that you've submitted Wednesday's assignment, very similar to today's. And in math, yesterday, you had to convince me that 2 hundreds, 9 tens, and 10 ones equals 300. So make sure you get those turned in, and make sure you're taking pictures of your math challenge. Keep practicing. It's getting a little bit harder, but keep practicing. If there are 40 questions on the up through, you have 4 minutes to complete those, and you can miss up to 4. So and then if there's 30 questions, you have up to 3 minutes, and you can miss 3. Okay, so it's basically 1 per 10 that you can miss, and you have a minute per 10 to complete it. Y'all are going to rock this, and your 4th grade teachers are going to be so impressed that you know your math facts, so keep it up. Okay, another decision I made when I looked back at our votes, the vote to continue the Frog and Toad Treasury was very close to where in the world the Humphrey book, excuse me, I'm sorry, I forget the exact name of it. The World According to Humphrey. And so I'm going to switch back and forth between those two. So today I'm going to go back to the Frog and Toad Treasury. And I am on page 16. I am on the story. Let me show you the picture. One day in summer, Frog was not feeling well. Toad said, "Frog, you're looking quite green." "But I always look green," said Frog. "I am a frog." "Today you look very green even for a frog," said Toad. "Get into my bed and rest." Toad made Frog a cup of hot tea. Frog drank the tea and then he said, "Tell me a story while I'm resting." "All right," said Toad. "Let me think of a story I can tell you." Toad thought and thought, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. And here's him thinking, two different places. "I will go out on the front porch and walk up and down," said Toad. "Perhaps that will help me to think of a story." Toad walked up and down on the porch for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad went into the house and stood on his head. "Why are you standing on your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I stand on my head, it will help me think of a story," said Toad. Toad stood on his head for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad poured a glass of water over his head. "Why are you pouring water over your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I pour water over my head, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. Toad poured many glasses of water over his head, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad began to bang his head against the wall. "Why are you banging your head against the wall?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I bang my head against the wall hard enough, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. "I'm feeling much better now, Toad," said Frog. "I do not think I need a story anymore." "Then you get out of bed and let me get into it," said Toad, "because now I feel terrible." Frog said, "Would you like me to tell you a story, Toad?" "Yes," said Toad, "if you know one." "Once upon a time," said Frog, "there were two good friends, a frog and a toad. The frog was not feeling well. He asked his friend the toad to tell him a story. The toad could not think of a story. He walked up and down on the porch, but he could not think of a story. He stood on his head, but he could not think of a story. He poured water over his head, but he could not think of a story. He banged his head against the wall, but he still could not think of a story. Then the toad did not feel so well, and the frog was feeling better. So the toad went to bed, and the frog got up and told him a story. The end. "How was that, Toad?" said Frog. But Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep. I'd say that was a pretty good story if you helped him fall asleep, don't you? And that's the end of the story. Thank you for joining me this morning, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning, Friday. Have a great Thursday. I'm looking forward to seeing all your submissions for your daily grades, your test grades, and your math challenges. Bye.